Today is July the 6th, and I hope everybody had a good 4th and a good weekend. We are actually unexpectedly local today. I was going to go to Vermont this weekend, but the weather up there is about the same rainy mess we had down there, or up down here. So we're going to do a run down here into an area I haven't been into in a few months, looking for signs of activity. And we'll see what goes on from there, and we'll see what we talk about. There's some technical updates to give on things as I progress with them, and there's also thinking of any fodder from the rumor mill, but I don't really know that there's much from that. But we'll cover what we can, or otherwise just do the field thing and see what happens. Let's move along, see what we find, and we'll see where we end up. Thanks.
See, obscured, bumpy, ferny shit for at least the first leg of this particular journey, so this is going to be tricky. And if you want witty banter while I'm doing this, I can't really afford to be holding a camera, so we're doing the hands-free, probably unfortunately a little bouncy because the nature of the fucking terrain is not that great. And these lovely ferns I have to go slow with because they're obstructing things that get you injured and starting to get on my nerves. So because it just rained, it might be a little slick too, so this is going to be a little slow going. Once we get down there, I'll do that. It gets a little better, but because it levels off on the edge of a wetland, but thanks to the previous loggers in here, this isn't really perfect terrain. So you kind of have to go slow and careful. But getting there. The bug situation seems to be off and on. There are deer flies about, but I did remember the bug spray and I brought it with me because as you sweat it starts to wear off, and then deer flies, you notice I'm slipping a lot. The deer flies don't think they're not here, because they are. No, half the problem is the fucking mess the loggers left behind. You know, step out over and around it. I grew in with the ferns, so this is kind of a little bit of a challenge to maneuver. I'm also nursing a slight tweak in my back I'm trying to be careful of too, so. Next week, hand to heaven, we're going back to Vermont and we're going to get into one of the bigger areas. It's just those are ideally sunny day environments, and I'm trying to get around this. I don't want to go through this because I keep hitting logs and shit. At least this log I can see. Question is, can I safely step over it? Because I'm trying to go downhill and not get driven like on a parallel course, but easier said than done in this. So those are like sunny day trips going in the driving rain. The one I had in mind potentially delves directly into matters of flooding, which opens up safety concerns too, and how open some of that area is. They have apparently reopened some of the road, but there were still, most recent visit, signs of road equipment, so that makes the ability to get through or turn around less than certain of a road. And I didn't really do this the best way, did I? Hard knock. All right, get off me. Again, slow and careful, because that way you don't wipe out and fall into God knows what. I don't know how bumpy or blurry this is again. The camera as being used right now is going on the principle that I'm just recording as I go. So I can do hands-free and still record things as they occur. But because I otherwise wouldn't be recording right now with the other one in my hands, because I need both my hands to just kind of gain access to more level ground, which I think we've done without. The annoyance is, even though the bugs are so far respecting the DEET, they're still looking for openings. So, see how far I get without having to reapply. Now it gets a little bit better though. We can make some headway here. So for technical updates, I've had a chance to, I have a, what I was hoping was going to be an always-on LoRaWAN node, and I'm finding, so they're set up, you can use USB power, but I was USB-C power. They also have what's called a 18650 battery. It's kind of like 1 1/3 size the times the size of a triple or a double A battery. And I gave that a test during the week, and it went for about a night. So it is, they're rechargeable, you can recharge them, but it's like a one night overnight thing. So it'll cover you for an overnight operation, but I guess that was the purpose of the experiment too, kind of like an endurance test. And in checking with the Facebook group that deals with this particular technology, they seem to concur the combination of a LilyGo T-Beam Supreme circuit board doing the LoRaWAN piece and the battery are good for about what I'm finding. Although some people are warning that, like a certain scams on Amazon, you have shitheads from China that are selling things as things that they're not. And there you get screwed too, because you'll find that you have like a freaking glorified AA battery. Allegedly, some of the LoRaWAN boards have basically like charge protectors, so they take in a steady, I think it's 3.7 volts of regulated voltage in order to function correctly. But sorry, I need to adjust that. I'm assuming they can do that. I find that, let me adjust the camera just a little bit so it's facing more apparently straightforward. They apparently can do that, although some of the Heltec ones, specifically the Heltec V3, of which I have 4 so far, if you give them less than even voltage, they tend to go into a reboot loop because they're not getting the right amount of power. It doesn't seem to damage them, but it does not have them work right either, though. So that's an issue. Anyway, let me get past this stream and back to solid ground, and I'll do a pan to give you an idea of where we are and what we're in the middle of in this. Again, this is Connecticut, kind of like state line area forest. So I have to kind of turn, because this is a fixed mounted camera, compensating for the hands-free model, but also coming with inherent night vision if you use it at night. As of yet untested. It's a bouncing leaf. I thought you had a little critter over there. But also under highest resolution, probably like an 8-hour battery life, so you should be able to just keep going and recording with it. It may not be the non-bumpiest footage, but should something occur, the camera's on. So it's kind of a trade-off. So normally in the winter, on occasion, I have, flown the drone out into this. But depending on the section of the wetland you're on, you can see it gets pretty scrubby in there. So you're not going to go and have a smooth takeoff out of that scrub brush. You're going to have to find another area, and I would like to get the drone in the air today. Technical uncertainties there and a political rant of sorts. If you're familiar with drone related politics, you'll know that the FAA recently, or is it the FCC, voted to ban all future imports of DJI drones. They haven't gotten to Holy Stone or Potenzik yet, but if I'm right, they're done in China too, which is going to make that likely a matter of borrowed time. And my theory on this is a bit of a follow the money theory, because effectively America, they're going to push you towards Skydio drones, which are an American company, granted, but they also, the price point on the lowest and Skydio drone begins at about $1,000, which kind of puts the drone thing outside the price point of a lot of people, because it has a lot of money. And it's not that I can't afford it, it's just, for some of us, it's a matter of, should I have to afford it? Because the amount of money you're talking about for something that the government is inherently going to fuck with the access to is a matter of, why do you always have like that one thing that's in the way of a smooth step across any otherwise easy crossing of a stream? But we made it, so whatever. And that's my thought. If you look hard enough, you're going to find a contract between Skydio and some government agency that's trying to push the Chinese out. And there are some cases where this is a valid thing. You have an entire generation of Gen Z. I'm not going to call them content creators, because content creator is not a job. That's what I'm doing right now, and it's a hobby. If you find a way to monetize your hobby, all the power to you. Still a fucking hobby. Suck it. If you disagree. I'm right, you're wrong. Anyway, because it's so lovely and white, you get a little New England wilderness, you get 2 eastern newts and whatever the hell kind of bizarre looking mushroom that is, and gnats galore. In fact, that might be photo worthy, so bear with me as I do. So for those of you looking for Bigfoot photos, if you don't realize that they're few and far between, then grow up. That's my answer going forward. I could rant about the believer groups and the bullshit that's in there every day, and the short bus passengers who eat up that content every day. And no, I'm not going to say I'm sorry for feeling that way. There are those of us that come out here and kind of make a solid effort to look for evidence, and those idiots are why we proverbially put can't have nice things. And it gets old, so you had a weird mix in here of like the old style New England stone walls and deadfall, and in some areas this is actually fairly opened up, but that ferny goodness up the hill, not so much. I thought if I could wade through that really slowly, I might be able to do it without putting myself at risk, but that was becoming debatable. So yeah, unfortunately, the reality of my drone fleet is I have a Mavic Mini and DJI themselves, because God forbid they don't want to support my current phone anymore. I was able to get the Spark firmware to work, at least on a basic level, after clearing out the cache and all the stored information, and then it was willing to play nice again. I haven't bothered to tinker with the Mini's firmware, which is a different app, but the difference between the two is the Mini's connection is by way of an OTP cable, OTG cable, and they makes for a trickier state of connection, and that may be more. Some fucking bug just pooped on me. That's just wrong. I don't want to keep going up. They may have broken the app on me, so there's that too. That's the other side of the current state. That's why you don't see as much drone footage in my videos of late, because they've made it a sufficiently consistent pain in the ass. I'll take it out and see if the drone wants to play nice, but then I'm kind of leery about getting too playful with it, because again, where does the app stop working? Because once you're out past a certain point, that's what you're operating off of, and if it's not reliable, that's a problem, obviously. I do know I'm not going to drop $1,200 on a Skydio drone solely because the government is maneuvering the market, so that's the only option available. I went to the trouble to get certified by the FAA on the basic level so that I can use the drone still with all the remote ID loveliness and all that, and I registered and paid my $5, which admittedly is not a lot of money to be registered with the government, but they have left the DJI situation such that existing drones in somebody's ownership are okay for now, which effectively means, in the government's arrogant wisdom, they can decide to screw with it at any point later that they deem to be convenient. And this is not exactly my it's they basically have just taken something away from the civilian population for reasons that are petty and frankly a little bit invasive. And where they're loosening up some things with like ham radio and things like that, they're actually getting to be dicks with drones. And unfortunately, it is, to a large degree, to kind of play both sides of devil's advocate here. A failure on the part of the drone community to self-police themselves on a level like, say, the ham radio people do. And you had enough people doing stupid shit on YouTube, and I've seen a fair amount of it myself, where they're breaking the regulations. And you do that enough and the government's going to step in, and they have. And true to form, it's getting muggy as hell in here, so I am starting to sweat, so we'll start to see when I have to reapply the bug spray. But bear with me. We're not there yet. The situation with that is, you can make an argument for government overreach, but you can also make an argument for, this is why we can't have nice things, because people too many people messed around, and the government saw fit to step in. Not that they weren't waiting for the chance or the excuse, but they were given it, so we kind of use it. We don't use it as often now. That being said, out here in the middle of nowhere, I still hold to the belief I'm not hurting anything, but the other reality is that the Spark is regulated by the FAA, whereas the Mini is underweight. But the DJI idiots broke the Mini, so I do have the Spark with me today. My other one is a Potensic, which, well, not under all the same nonsense as the first one, is larger and fixed wing, not foldable, which makes carrying it around more of a pain. And it has a fixed mounted camera as opposed to a gimbal camera, so it's not there as a flying camera. It's basically a toy. And in case you're wondering, I do know where I'm going. We're basically paralleling the edge of this wetland, and it's a water source, so we're checking this for signs of life, although you look at the undergrowth, easier said than done. Your classic New England northeastern loose leaf litter forest floor kind of situation. I suppose I could switch cameras, but right now I'm covering ground and I'm covering subject matter, so we're going to stick with this for now. Far as Bigfoot drama, that kind of thing, I haven't really heard of any that isn't the norm. Like I said, the biggest annoying bit of, I'm going to call it annoyance-tainment, are the believer groups, because you have the same, and I use this in finger quotes, so no, I'm not complimenting these idiots, the same geniuses posting the same obviously fake BS every day, number one. And number two, they are rehashing the same. Okay, every now and then you find an interesting thing. This is a tortoise shell, and that's been there a while. Question is, did he shed that, or is that something that he had help losing? And bear with me a sec. That is it's a land tortoise, so that's another reason why I like this area. You do find, every now and then, you find some weird shit like that in here. Did not expect to find a tortoise shell, but there it is. And unfortunately, it kind of looks like it was predation. Like it was removed with help, which would mean on the smaller end, like a raccoon, because they have those little creepy ass paw hands, or a bear. And we are in an area where you have more than enough of both. So I think it was 2016 I posted a video of a bear, and that took place that way, a couple 100 yards from here, for nostalgia purposes. And just because you don't see them at the moment doesn't mean they're not here. We have one, I think I've mentioned this already. I live in the suburbs of central Connecticut, and our own neighborhood now has a dumpster visiting neighborhood bear. In the state of Connecticut, unfortunately, they are more common, as in becoming more common. And we don't have a bear season yet, but in spite of the objections by gun-hating Chris Murphy, who takes his little obsession too far in his political agenda. You're going to notice throughout the day, I am not the biggest fan of the federal government. And before anyone starts assuming my political affiliations, we're not going to delve into that because I tend to be fairly apolitical and I am not a big fan of either side. So if you are a wokety woke or you are a Trumper, go fuck yourselves and keep your opinions to yourself because I really don't care. Notice I don't pull any punches. Notice I go for the extremes of both sides, and notice I don't play favorites. Political rant over. Back to Bigfooting and outdoorsy stuff. The best thing you can do if you bring up politics in front of me is just very quick agreement to agree to disagree like adults, and then we move on. Because there are too many out there that just really want to shove their talking points down your throat. And I'm nice the first time. I'm very blunt about it the second time. The third time, I'm going to walk away and you're going to let me do so, or we're going to get into a scuffle. I do have political things I could talk about to cover ground. I was amused to see the Just Stop Oil protesters in England finally getting arrested. No offense, limeys, but your laws are way the fuck too lax with that kind of crap. By comparison, I think it was last year going to Burning Man. Their climate conscious little equivalents in America thought they would block the road, which is a just really stupid tactic because you don't gain converts to your cause doing that. All you do is piss off the general public and make them hate you and equate your cause with a bunch of fucking hyperly privileged little shitheads that... And I have a local example of that too, but we'll get there in a minute. The little hippie twats that thought the Burning Man crowd would rally to their cause rather than being resentful of being stuck in the desert heat for a line going back miles in the hot desert were met by whatever reservation this is on and the reservation tribal police. First guy rolls up and tells them, I will talk to whoever wants to talk to me, but you're packing up your shit and you're getting out of here right now or I'm going to start arresting people. Not playing games. And he's in a big dually F-250 or something like that. And the second one comes in and just plows into their roadblock, dragging 3 protesters with it and just pushes it out of the road so the people in the traffic can move and get out of the hot sun and get set up. And to some, maybe that seems heavy-handed. When you have a miles long line of backed up traffic and the inability for people think EMS to get there should there be a medical emergency in the heat, because that never happens. They acted quickly, decisively to break that shit up and get it out of the way. As well they should have. Because I was listening to the commentary of the Just Stop Oil whiners when they were getting picked up by the cops at their houses. And they were insisting, we've done nothing wrong. You broke into an airport and you vandalized planes. You basically vandalized Stonehenge. A bunch of Neolithic stacked up rocks that have nothing to do with your cause. And yeah, you did. You actually did do something wrong. And I don't sympathize your cause at that point. Again, you're doing something that pisses off the general public, and it doesn't serve your cause with a positive message. You're like, it's not that the cause doesn't have some underlying validity, but you seem to attract the single most clueless, entitled brats with no common sense to freaking pursue these causes and piss off everybody and make everybody against the cause. It's almost like the oil companies are financing them to hurt the cause in the first place. As conspiratorial as that sounds, it actually does make a certain element of sense. The plausible deniability false flag thing. There's a bullfrog out there and he agrees with me. It's just kind of fucking ridiculous that these idiots are doing this. You had people that were the bystanders that were intervening, trying to keep them from spray painting Stonehenge. And you can tell they train in passive resistance, because one guy gets pushed away and just plants himself and has a seat, so they go after the next guy, and the guy who planted the seat gets up and starts all over again. You need to kick the shit out of and physically injure these people to shut them down. Because what they're doing really is not okay. There's the view I was looking for, damn it. Right there. So I stand on this to take a picture of this. Kind of a little pose on my end, but then you get some decent shots in here. I have never actually followed through on an intent to see what viability this has as a fishing spot too, because you do have water down there, and if you see, you might actually have a trout or two in there. And day out fishing, although a day less muggy than today, because I am going to be moist when I get home. Probably not the right choice of words. You're also out in big granite-like rocks like this. I got to remember to take advantage of the scenery while I'm out here. But this little stretch is kind of Pacific Northwesty looking. But I guess that's my more right-wing leanings. So the one at Burning Man, they just basically bulldozed the barrier blocking the road out of the way after they were skirmishing with the people trying to get into Burning Man, trying to push the protesters out of the way. Because people are like, if you see these things happening in Europe, same thing. People get out of the cars and they just grab one of these idiots in a headlock and toss him on the side of the road, only to see the shithead just get up and go back. And honestly, what you ought to do is run them over. This sounds terrible. It's illegal. I'm not condoning it. I'm not recommending it. But you want to send them a message that what they're doing is not okay. Run them over. Let them accumulate a casualty list and then see how willing they are to do it. Test their resolve. Because the people at the Burning Man protest, they try to play the little victim card and scream excessive force, but you are literally putting hundreds, if not more, people at risk from the heat, from their own stupidity. So I don't sympathize with them or the cause. And climate is a very real issue. I'm not denying that, but if these are the fucking salesmen for the cause, God help us all, because you're idiots. You are fucking idiots. And they, sorry, just doing a little quick flash photography here, as in just on the fly. Some boulder and rock, Pacific Northwest looking kind of whatnot. And then, but I've never really determined whether this is a human made or more of a moose path, because it looks more like this was done by Bullwinkle. We do. And yes, Connecticut does not have 1,000,001 moose like Vermont does, but we do have them, and I have seen them in Connecticut. First one I ever saw was in Connecticut. before seeing one in Vermont as well. I've seen 2 in Vermont, but I've seen 1 in Connecticut. 3 in Vermont, actually, and it's always cool to see one. That's just a big, majestic animal as long as you have enough sense to give it the space it's going to probably demand of you. You're not talking about Bambi. You're talking about something that will step on you if it feels the need to, so you might bear that in mind. I'm going to take the high road this time, I think. Anyway, rambling aside, we'll kind of pick and choose for this. I'll probably edit out the political anti-protester rant because not really normally what I do. And I'm sure liberals in the crowd, but they have a valid, yeah, they do have a valid cause. They're just really, 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 really fucking stupid in how they go about expressing it. My better half is probably sympathetic to some of these causes, and I have advised her that I don't think she should protest like that. There are ways to protest with your dollars and things of this nature that probably do more to hurt an offending business interest bottom line by not buying their shit than you're doing by going and spray painting freaking airplanes at the, I guess it was Heathrow, but I mean, they were being arrested because they thought they were basically spray painting and vandalizing Taylor Swift's jet. And it must be a nice thing to have your own personal jet, but they got the wrong jet because they're stupid. And resultingly, they also obviously failed to bypass facial recognition or whatever identified them, and they ended up having a knock on the door, and there's the constabulary coming to read you your rights and take you off to jail. Although, seeing as it's British pussy jail as opposed to American jail, you're probably going to get a glorified slap on the wrist when what they did falls into the neighborhood of domestic terrorism, in that you broke into an airport and you were violating airport security and vandalizing aircraft. Granted, only this time spray paint, but you're giving the encouragement to people that might have more sinister intent. They can get in there and do worse. So there's a crime on that level too. And I just literally stepped in moose poo. That's solely on me. But I did. It was bound to happen. Anyway, I'm going to do some photography in here, and I'm going to take a break from recording for a minute if I can do this smoothly. Back. This is going to be a shorter segment. We're kind of on our way up and out. You can kind of see a difference in the terrain too. Kind of changes on this side of the wetland. And getting back into bigfooting stuff. It's a slow season in some ways in terms of like online drama, because a lot of people are actually out camping or doing what they do. I may be doing that next weekend. I wanted to avoid the whole 4th of July weekend thing, because I know from bitter experience you can think you have the most local, the most remote spot out there. Unfortunately, the locals know it too. And I forget the guy's name from Vermont last year, but if you're listening, kind of a belated fuck you for not controlling your dog better last year. You spent more time in my campsite than yours. And you need to train that animal to have more self-control, because he doesn't, and he's a pain in the ass. And as campers go, you were shitty neighbors as a result. So again, F you very much for ruining. Sorry. No. Trying to find a good position for the camera, but I guess we're not going to do that. Alright, this video is as is then. Because again, walking through this stuff. Human beings lack the capacity to walk like a robot perfectly level through mixed terrain. Doesn't happen. So, it is what it is. So now I need to figure out a way across this with minimal grief. So we're going to make an approach to this, and the operative thing, as long as I don't like slip and break my leg doing this, as hot and muggy as it is suddenly, if I do get my feet wet, that's okay. I'll live. Just trying to find I'm more concerned actually with like trying to avoid slipping on an algae covered rock, but this is looking pretty tame right by this root up thing here, this root ball. If I can get down there without killing myself, I gotta. The thing is, and this is a mental block on my part, I'll hit something like this and I'll find a need, and this is completely psychological, where I have to go left to right and I end up being facing right to left and I need to reposition my feet. Or psychologically I have a problem trying to make the effort to do it. Makes no sense. It's a psychological thing, but that is one of those things. I've just learned to live with my quirks, and other people might stand to do so too, mental health being what it is. Every now and then I go on a mental health rant. And being highly aware of your mental health and the state does not make you a person per se with mental health issues. It actually, I think, makes an argument for you being that much more self-aware of things. And since she's not here to defend herself, and I'm not going to mention her name, I have a neighbor living downstairs from me who wrestles with anxiety, and more than once she has acted, I'm just going to say, kind of off, as in maybe she's gone 2 days without a med refill or something. I'm not going to profess to conjecture the nature of it. Also, on a navigational error, I'm not coming up the same way that I went in. I don't know specifically on the road where I'm going to end up, but I do know that in the direction I'm headed, I will eventually head up. I just have to have some discipline here, because as the ground is becoming less stable and the sweat is undoing the DEET covering and the mosquitoes are getting more insistent, I need to not go into a panicked rush, because that's when you're going to fuck up your ankle. And I should be able to swat them away. That's another reason why we're on the police cam, so that if I have to swat at bugs, and we're getting there rapidly, I can do so with minimal interruption of filming. And you don't see the gimbal, the fisheye camera being used as a fly swatter. As we get thicker into the ferny shit, as we are closer to the road. And by that I mean fairly close. And by road, I mean logging road. Not like tar. So, while I'm still not swatting madly at bugs, we're going to call the video here quiet day, but the season so far has been quiet. Except for a very early on visit we had, a visit we had last year actually, in Vermont. With a witness though, so that was good. So in the meantime, like, subscribe, offer comments and suggestions. And I'm going to end this one here, and you're going to have about probably 5 seconds of fumble time as I get the camera to go off smoothly. But I'm going to do it without my yapping to save the having to listen to that. I can just edit that part out. So we'll catch you next time. Bye.